What's up, guys? It's your boy Brandon here, back with another episode of the BQ Report, episode 9. Today, I'm going to be talking about what occurred yesterday with the hearings, the committee hearings, and many other political news that came out yesterday. There were a lot of different stories that we heard from the committee, from the House Oversight Committee last night around 6 p.m. when we heard Rudy Giuliani's team testify for election fraud. They claimed that election fraud had occurred and somebody messed with the printers, messed with all of the information regarding the election, and somehow ballots got scanned twice, 3 times, 4 times, sometimes 5 times based on the errors in calculation that they had put into the machines. They claimed that many of the machines built by a company called Dominion had malfunctioned and somebody used USB hard drives to manipulate these machines and therefore alter the outcome of the election. They brought in plenty of key witnesses to try to make this story credible. They even had them sign affidavits to confirm that these were true stories and the things that these people were talking about actually took place here in Michigan. At the end of all their statements, Rudy Giuliani went on a tangent while talking to many of the Michigan representatives, and he basically told them that they should do something about this election fraud and bring forth a lawsuit or intervene somehow on behalf of Giuliani's team to try to change the election because it was supposedly illegitimate or something wrong happened on election day while they counted ballots. Now, let me tell you my views on this. I watched this hearing live and I saw Rudy Giuliani act in a way and use certain terms and language that I normally wouldn't use, and so I attempted to avoid the back and forth shenanigans that typically Republicans do with Democrats that simply are trying to understand the truth of the situation. However, that seemed to be impossible based on circumstances between the Democrats, the chair, Matt Hall, and Rudy Giuliani. There was just so much tension in the room that the conversation got too heated and nothing really got done in terms of policy or understanding. The only thing that was really accomplished by that hearing was we heard the claims of 4 individuals that there were election frauds happening during the election, on election day. Those claims have yet to be substantiated and confirmed. Like I've stated before in a previous video, plenty of Republicans, Mike Shirkey and Lee Chatfield, went up to the White House to talk to President Trump, and they explicitly told Trump that they will not be altering the outcome of this election, no matter what. Therefore, I thought this whole entire shenanigan process of bringing forth these witnesses and using them to facilitate an election fraud claim just made everything more difficult rather than easier, and created hostile tensions between the Democrats and Republicans. I think there could have been a better way to handle that situation on the part of Rudy Giuliani, but then again, he might just understand and know for a fact that he's not going to get a new term on January 20th. Joe Biden will be sworn in, and the election outcome has already been decided. The electoral votes from Michigan, the 16 votes, have already gone to Joe Biden, and he is now the president-elect. I think the main thing that this is trying to accomplish is simply just confusion, attacking, hostile relations with other representatives, hostile relations. He's trying to ramp up some more heat across the aisle and persuade some other people that election fraud had actually taken place, when we know for a fact that it's too late and the election has already gone to the winner, Joe Biden. There's nothing that anybody can change about that thus far. Maybe the people that committed those crimes should get prosecuted and possibly sentenced or fined, and they should face the consequences. But when it comes to the election, I doubt that's going to get overturned, ruled out, or changed anytime soon. It's a month after the election had already occurred. Maybe if this was a day or two after the election at most, maybe this would be possible. But it just seems like it's not going to happen anytime soon. This election was free and fair and happened under a advisory committee. The Michigan certification election certified the election as confirmed, and the results are confirmed and trustworthy. We have no reason to doubt the credibility and integrity of the Michigan Board of Canvassers. With that being said, I think the committee yesterday just proved a point that truth will always dispel lies, no matter what. And yeah, it's just sad to see like other people try to continue to lie even when they're exposed by the truth. You know what I mean? Like once you are exposed one time, it should come to no surprise that you are going to get exposed again. And those committee members that were asking them questions were just trying to find out the truth and figure out what actually happened. Because if there was election fraud that had taken place, I'm sure they would want to know and try to contact the deputy attorney general, high-ranking public officials to come and save or investigate on this particular issue. That's not what happened here. I mean, the questions that were being asked were fair, in my opinion, fair, reasonable, and conscientious. And they came to a surprise to many of the witnesses that had been testifying before the committee. And it just came out as a hostile way to respond. And many of those questions were not even answered in a specific manner. And I think to gain credibility, to gain rapport, to establish a relationship with the committee, you need to show some semblance of respect, some semblance of integrity, credibility, honor, honesty, responsibility for your actions, or otherwise no one's going to believe your story, and all credibility has been lost based on the way that you treat the other person sitting across from you. So it all comes down at the end of the day to respect, courtesy, politeness, and just basic civility. Otherwise, no one's going to believe you when you have a substantial claim of election fraud that is very, very key and very, very important to people who oversaw the election. You can't claim election fraud occurred without showing credible witnesses and demonstrating some tangible proof that wrong actions had occurred inside of the TKG building or whatever that building happened to be where they were counting the ballots. It could have been a couple instances where this actually happened. Like, for example, a vote or two were miscalculated and repeated, and that's okay. Human error is allowed. It's not like everyone can commit to an obligation where they will make no mistakes. Of course, mistakes happen on behalf of many of the team members that were in charge of supervising the election process. And that's true. I'm not going to say that this election went perfect. I did see some aggressive behavior myself when going to the polls as well. And that's totally fine. And I admire people who show their true nature and opinions during critical times in history. I admire that. What I don't admire are people who try to establish claims to be false, or they try to establish claims to be true when they know for in fact they are false, but without any guidance, they intend to push a narrative to further a story that attempts to give credibility to a false story when there is no credibility to be made. It's just a confusing story that makes no sense to the person listening unless they cross-examine the other person in an honest fashion, in a completely integral way that can benefit both parties to figure out the truth. If one person is not being honest and swearing on behalf of and taking the oath, or just simply telling the truth, then the entire relationship gets destroyed and nobody can find out what really happened between these two parties or what happened with what they observed. Because again, they can have faulty memories. Evaluating evidence isn't so easy and clear. Many people can forget things and see things that normally aren't really there. And so the human mind is a complex object. It's very complex. And you have faulty judgment sometimes. I'm not saying the Democrats or Republicans on the Democratic committee were any fair as well. But they were certainly more fair than the witnesses who testified based on the respect shown by that legal team. It just simply shows based on your civility and the way that you interact with other people on the other side of the aisle. And now the questions that were asked on behalf of the committee were most of the time fair, very fair and respectful, reasonable questions, and they triggered something into the legal team, the president's legal team. And I couldn't for the life of you tell you why. I assume the reason why they counteract these questions with hostile force, hostile language, is because they just want to avoid any question that could demonstrate their validity of truth, of figuring out the exact truth. Because they swore on an affidavit, they have a legal obligation to tell what they wrote down, to say what they wrote down is the truth. And so they're stuck to that, even though somebody might ask them a question that day, which can reveal something totally different of what happened. Because obviously somebody else asking a question is going to impact what they answer and what they remember, because that can jog your memory. Somebody asking you a specific question can jog your memory and help you remember things that were normally you couldn't remember them on experience alone. It takes somebody else to give you that push, that little edge, that question, for helping you understand what really went on and improving memory. And so I think that's what the point was for that meeting. But anyways, that meeting went by very smoothly. It was supposed to go on for 3 hours, from 6 to 9, I believe, 2 to 3 hours. However, that went on for 5.5 hours. It ended at 10:30, and people were flooding the streets of Lansing and calling for violence and calling for protests. And Trump's people were hugely, erratic, violent, like always. That's just how they express their views, with violence and just terrible, awful demeanors. It's really bad that the way that they actually show their opinions, because everyone can just simply show their opinion in a respectful way, pragmatically speaking. It's not that hard to use your voice in a positive way to impact people. I guess that's the entire point of Trump's team, is to just give negative feedback on individual behaviors. But anyways, that was last night. Rudy Giuliani brought the witnesses to the committee of oversight. President Trump's legal team came to Michigan and said what they needed to say to try to overturn the election. The plan failed, and I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.